Good morning. My name is Michael Lowry, and today I'm going to be talking about how my values of pride and privilege have changed over the course of the semester. Imagine you're in a race. Let's say it's a 100-meter sprint, and you win. Among 7 or 8 others, you were the fastest, and you won the race. Would you feel proud? Yeah, of course you were. You were the fastest. But now, what if you had a 10-meter head start at the beginning? Or what if everybody else in the race had to run with 12 kilograms of weights dragging behind them, or had disabilities which undermine their performance? Would you still feel proud? The issue of pride is becoming a bit more complex because what you saw as an achievement before, you now only see as a result which was to be expected, nothing special. This is the core of the meaningful learning moment which I want to be exploring today. The question of how pride is affected by our realization of an acknowledgement of the head starts that we've been given in life. In other words, our privileges. But first, I want to take a look at what our actual understanding of the word privilege is. The responses to my survey, which we did as an in-class assignment, showed that the vast majority of us in this class felt that we were privileged when compared to the average student-aged person across the whole world. And I would say that's very accurate. I mean, the simple fact that we're in this class at this university puts us well above the average. Now, combine that with the fact that most of us will go on to find very well-paid jobs. We all have cell phones and laptops, which we might take for granted, and we all eat 3 full meals a day, or at least we could if we could get ourselves out of bed in the morning. We often take these for granted, but these are all forms of privilege that we need to acknowledge. Later, I'll look at why it's so important to acknowledge our privileges, but for now, I want to think about how it affects our personal pride. I explored this issue in my Unit 1 essay, where we were tasked with exploring an important value and how it's changed and affected our lives up to this point in time. I shared in that essay a memory which I want to share with you now. It was about 2 years ago, and I was talking with a very close friend of mine, and she asked me, "Do you feel proud to be a white South African?" And my mind kind of automatically skipped over the word white because I just heard proud and South African, and the answer was easy. Of course I'm proud to be South African. I absolutely love my country. The fact that she brought race into it was completely ignored. But the thing that you need to understand is that the history of South Africa is full of hyper-racism, segregation, oppression, with the white minority utterly suppressing the black majority. This policy of apartheid, as it was called, this hyper-racist governmental system, was ended when Nelson Mandela was elected as president in 1994. But more than 20 years down the line, the effects of that racist system are still being suffered daily by a large proportion of the population. This is what my friend was really trying to ask. How could I possibly be proud when I'm a representative of that oppressive, racist minority? Now, had I been younger, the answer would have been easy because I could just say, well, actually, my dad was one of the few white South Africans who fought against the policy of apartheid and even landed himself in prison for 2 months for fighting against apartheid. But you see, it's not actually that easy to casually shrug off the realities of the privilege which I've been afforded simply by being born white. And it's not as if I'm favored by the government or by any actual policies in the way that I would have been if I'd been born during the apartheid era, but my parents were. They were afforded the best government-funded education, which landed them in higher paid jobs than their neighbors and countrymates, who were unlucky enough to be born with darker skin in a world and society which treated them as inferior simply because of this fact. The statistics here show how much government money was spent per child on education. So a white child would have 1,200 Rand spent on them, while a black child would have 146 Rand that goes towards their education. Obviously, that puts these two children in very different circumstances when it comes to the jobs they're trying to find and the positions that they'll eventually find themselves in. So how could I possibly be proud of who I am? I couldn't answer that question at the time, and for a long time, it took the wind out of my sails. And my view of pride became even more negative. I started to think that any achievement or milestone which I had previously been proud of was actually nothing special because I'd only earned it through some kind of head start that I had. I started to think maybe I was only clever because my parents could afford to put me through private school. I started to think that I was only good at swimming because I'd grown up with a pool in my backyard and my parents could pay for swimming lessons from a young age. And it was a depressing thought. Until we were writing the Unit 1 essay and I put more thought into my understanding of the value of pride. Because I had realized that even though I'd become hyper aware of my privileges, I hadn't lost my sense of pride. I still valued it. And that's because I hadn't given up on pride by acknowledging privilege. I'd actually come to appreciate that pride is something to be really worked for. It's looking at all the advantages and privileges which you have in life, and then looking at what you've achieved and thinking that is something that you should truly be proud of, something incredible, something worthy of praise. And this was the process through which I came to value pride even more. There are other advantages to increasing our awareness of privilege. There's been a massive popularization of the social media tag known as Check Your Privilege, especially in South Africa. It's aimed at promoting equality, cooperation amongst people of different backgrounds. And the idea is that by raising your awareness of the privileged position you have in society, you'll be more inclined to help those with less than you. Another result of checking your privilege is to make people realize their position before saying things that could come across as hurtful. For example, a white male who went to a top private school who could afford tutoring lessons, extra lessons, and a lot of help, applies for a job at the same institution where a black woman from a poor community applies for a job. And even though maybe his application was slightly stronger, she gets the job. And now he goes and starts complaining without checking his privilege and realizing the advantages that he had and the struggles which the black woman might have had to go through. This is obviously a generalization, but it's an example which indicates the point. Values of compassion, cooperation, equality, and fairness are all strengthened when we accept the reality that we all have different backgrounds. And the need to bring us all to a level playing field. This has been an incredible learning curve for me because not only have I come to value my personal pride more, but also realize the potential promotion of values which are central to humanity, which can come from acknowledging our privileges. And as a result, I would urge all of you to just check your privilege. Thank you.